Hey everyone, Tam here. Today on this first edition of the Press Start Creature feature, everyone's favorite yellow two-legged video game mascot. Okay, everyone's second favorite. The Final Fantasy Chocobo is instantly recognizable as one of the main key staples throughout nearly the entire franchise's rich history. Comparable to a real-life ostrich, chocobos are flightless and very large for an avian animal. As such, these creatures are always domesticated for use as mounted transportation, effectively making them the Final Fantasy equivalent of horses. Making their debut in Final Fantasy II, they have appeared in some way in every game in the series and can be considered to be the franchise's mascot. In Final Fantasy II, chocobos can be found living in the appropriately named Chocobo Forest. Located south of Kashuan, it's the only place where your party can find a chocobo to mount. This enables you to move across the overworld map much faster than normal and avoid random encounters completely. After dismounting, however, the chocobo will immediately retreat to its home in the forest. Final Fantasy III, known as just Final Fantasy in the English localization, is famous for introducing the item most commonly associated with these lovable birds, Gissel Greens. These items can be used to summon the Fat Chocobo to store items. The more familiar appearance of the chocobo can be found in several different forests around the overworld map. Final Fantasy IV is the first game to introduce different colored chocobos. Regular yellow chocobos are used as a traditional mount with all the familiar functions. White chocobos restore MP to the entire party when caught, and black chocobos are the only type of chocobo that can actually fly. However, you can only dismount in the forest. Final Fantasy V introduces perhaps the most famous chocobo in the series. Belonging to protagonist Bartz Klauser, Boko is a chocobo that can be mounted as usual. However, he won't run away after being dismounted. Black, fat, and summoned chocobos also make a return in this iteration. Final Fantasy VI introduces chocobo stables, replacing the chocobo forests from past games. Functionally, they serve the same purpose as chocobo forests. Also, the party's gambler, Setzer Gabiani, can use his slot skill to summon chocobos into battle with a chocobo stampede, also known as Chocobob. Final Fantasy VII is the first game in the series to introduce chocobos as an actual enemy type that can be encountered. In order to trigger this, the chocobo lure materia has to be equipped. Chocobos can be captured by defeating all of the enemies in the encounter except for the chocobo. The player must then use a Gissel Green or any other greens to prevent the creature from running away. It's also possible to breed chocobos. This allows the player to create a variety of different colored chocobos, including yellow, green, blue, black, and gold. The Golden Saucer also has a chocobo racing minigame, akin to horse racing. Final Fantasy VIII brings back chocobo forests, while also featuring juvenile chocobos known as Chocobos. And as per usual, chocobos can be summoned into battle with some pretty deadly attacks. Final Fantasy IX allows the player to ride only one chocobo, named Choco. He can be summoned with the use of a Gissel Green at chocobo tracks. Choco can also be upgraded throughout the game if certain items are found. These allow the player to enter Chocobo's Dream World, where a fat chocobo will teach Choco a new ability. In Final Fantasy X, chocobos are quite a common sight throughout the world of Spira. Chocobo Knights ride armored chocobos into battle in their fight against Sin. A chocobo race minigame is also required in order to obtain Tidus's celestial weapon, Calidbald, in what is probably known as the most frustrating thing in the series. Screw you, seagulls! The franchise's first MMO entry, Final Fantasy XI, features rentable chocobos at chocobo stables. In the Treasures of Aht-Urhgan expansion, players were able to breed their own chocobos with different stats affecting both riding and racing capabilities. Final Fantasy XII features an abundance of chocobos throughout the land. These creatures can be rented from Gertie the Moogle at her chocobo ranch scattered all over Ivalice. You're also able to ride them, provided you feed them Gissel Greens. Multicolored chocobos also make a return along with introducing the Bull Chocobo, the mighty level 99 Red Chocobo, and the elite marked White Chocobo known as Trickster. Final Fantasy XIII has a variety of different chocobos. Most prominently featured is the chocobo living inside of Saz Katsura's hair, literally. Chocobos from Cocoon are what you'd expect from your run-of-the-mill chocobo. Those found on Grand Pulse, however, are much larger and feature two long strands of feathers on either side of their heads. Because of the way encounters work in this title, the Chocobo has a morale meter, where touching an enemy would cause this meter to decrease. If all the feathers on the meter are lost though, your mount will flee. The franchise's second MMO entry, Final Fantasy XIV, featured chocobos for players to both rent and own. Rental chocobos are automated travel systems that move on their own. Players can freely move with their own personal mounts, however. In A Realm Reborn, your chocobo can fight alongside you with several ways to upgrade their abilities in battle, including healing magic or offensive attacks. A patch later in the game's life has since allowed players to breed their own chocobos. Chocobos are confirmed to be returning in Final Fantasy XV, however, we have not yet seen what they look like up close. Curiously enough, Noctis and his friends' car features chocobo talons on the wheel's hubcaps. Perhaps this is a hint that the car has effectively replaced the use of chocobos as a means of travel in this game. I only covered the main numbered series, but chocobos have made dozens of appearances in almost every spin-off, such as Tactics, Crystal Chronicles, and Dissidia. There's even a whole set of spin-off games featuring chocobos as the main character, including Chocobo's Dungeon, and even Chocobo Racing, which plays like a Mario Kart-style kart racer. So, there you have it. A brief and concise history of the yellow-feathered bird of the Final Fantasy series. Look forward to next week when I'll be tackling something slightly bigger and more fiery.